welcome to Beat Diabetes. I am Benedicta Pollock and
I am Dennis Pollock, and we happen to have the same last name. Isn't that kind of a coincidence?
Yeah, it's kind of something, all right. How did that happen?
Well, I think it's when I said I do and you said I do, and we ended up with the same last name.
That's right.
So we are going to do some bread tests. Actually, we've already done two.
Yep.
Had two different types of bread. In a way, I would call it bread, modified bread, and not so much bread. But they're all a kind of have a bread taste and a bread feel to them.
Yeah.
So we're not going to give you the scores right now. We're just going to talk about our latest test that we're going to do. We're going to eat. This is a little past lunchtime, but we're going to have this as our lunch, and then we're going to come back and tell you what we got on all the scores for all the three types of bread, sort of bread, not much bread. So hold up the biscuit for a minute. And let the people see the biscuit. So we had biscuit and a roll, and that's just pure bread. And it's not just pure bread, it's white bread. It's not Ezekiel bread, it's not sourdough bread, it's just pure old nasty white bread, what everybody hates but everybody eats somehow. Don't ask me how that works. But, you know, in spite of all the nutritionists and everybody telling us white bread is nasty, it sells by the millions of loaves. I mean, it's just everywhere. And you go to the store, you're going to see all kinds of choices for white bread. So we tried that, got interesting results from it.
Yep.
And then secondly, what did we try? What was our last test?
That was the chaffle.
That was the chaffle, which is really not bread at all, except that it looks kind of like bread and tastes kind of like bread.
Yeah.
But it's made mostly from cheese and egg.
Yeah.
So you're not talking about many carbs at all. And we did a test, same test, basically tested ourselves 1 hour and 2 hours.
Yep.
Were you surprised about the results? Don't say what they are, but were you surprised at all?
I was expecting that, but, you know, I wasn't surprised.
Okay, I wasn't too much surprised either, but I was still kind of holding my breath. I wanted to show a contrast between pure old nasty white bread and a chaffle, and lo and behold, we got that contrast.
Yeah.
We'll share it. And now today, hold up what we're going to eat today.
What we're eating today is that one.
Now, that looks like a hamburger bun. Nobody would eat a hamburger bun by itself. They would always stick a hamburger in there, or at least some kind of meat.
In between.
But we're going to eat a hamburger bun by itself.
Yeah, I think because of the, you know, test we're doing and how this is going to affect us. Yeah. So that is why we're not really jamming so many things inside it. Right. Just eat it by itself and see how it's gonna, you know, result in our body.
That's right. And so we're gonna actually have one full bun plus a half more.
Okay.
And this isn't scientific. I didn't weigh it by the grams and by the carbs and everything else, but I just kind of put together what seemed about the reasonable amounts.
Yeah.
And no, we're not sticking a hamburger in it, but we want to find out by itself. Now, this is worst case scenario. When you eat carbs by themselves, that's where your blood sugar is going to jump the highest.
Yeah.
If you throw in some fat with it, it's going to blunt that spike a bit.
Okay.
Not altogether, but a bit. So hand me one of those buns, being careful not to bump into our microphone here.
Okay.
And we've got some butter. So I'm going to just melted butter. Just put a little melt. We put butter on each one just to give it some flavor. You say, well, couldn't you have just eaten it by itself? Yeah, we could have. But since I'm the one doing the test and kind of organizing it, my rules. And if I have to eat bread by itself, the least I could do is give it a little bit of flavor.
Yeah.
So take a little of this melted butter and put it on one of the pieces. We'll just take a bite here, and then we're going to go downstairs and actually have a meal of this bun and a half. This is a keto bun, which means they have created a manufactured fiber within it to the point where it's not supposed to raise blood sugar much at all. So let's go ahead and take a test. What do you think? How is it in terms of flavor?
It's like bread, buns.
Well, exactly. I have to give the keto manufacturer some credit because there are some keto foods that just don't taste quite like the original at all.
Yeah.
I eat cauliflower rice, but let's face it, cauliflower rice is not as good as regular rice. No. Would you agree?
No, I agree with you. It's not like regular rice. That flavor and the taste is not there.
Yeah. But the keto breads, the manufactured keto breads, they somehow create, I sometimes call it a fake fiber or manufactured fiber. You can't tell any difference. If someone put a blindfold on me and said, well, is this a keto bun or a keto bread or is this regular? I wouldn't know. It tastes absolutely as good.
It's soft.
It's soft.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of the flavor, you got to give them some credit. Kudos to them. But not everybody reports that it can prevent blood sugar spikes. Some people say it works, some say it doesn't, some say, well, this brand works, but that brand doesn't. My policy is find a brand that works, test it pretty thoroughly, and then just stick with it. And don't sample other brands and experiment. Just stay with something that works for you. When I say works, what I mean is it doesn't spike your blood sugar much. Test it an hour after you eat, 2 hours, 3 hours. And give it a good, thorough testing. And if it passes, it's like, all right, you're my friend. I don't know about the others.
Yeah. So
are you excited about this bun meal, hamburger bun meal?
Yeah, it's different. I'm excited. This is like helping our fans be the lab rats. So we are testing for them so that
so they don't have to.
At the end, so that they don't have to. At the end, they will see, okay, that one was too high. Benedicta, I'm so sorry. I'm not eating that.
Right. No, actually, I do encourage you to test for yourself. I say that kind of jokingly, but the reality is we're all different. And so you'd be safer if you test yourself. But at least you'll find out how it works for Ben
us.
and Den.
Yeah.
So we'll be back in a little bit, and we'll let you know how this meal affected our blood sugar. We'll tell you about the other 2 tests we did as well. Well, we are back. And, my love, if this was a competition, you just beat me all over the place, huh?
That's right.
So, again, we started out with a biscuit and a roll. And, I think bread is kind of like the deceiver. The deceiver, because it doesn't taste sweet.
Yeah.
And so, a donut would, of course, but regular bread does not taste sweet, and it makes you feel like it must be safe to eat, which it is not. So, let's go ahead with your test with the biscuit and a roll, the pre-meal. Start there and just go right down the line.
Okay, so for the biscuit and roll, my pre-meal was 91. 1 hour time, I was scoring 148. And then in 2 hours time, I was scoring 123. And then bedtime, Dennis decided to test himself and didn't wake me up to come and test. Yeah, thanks a lot. I don't want to,
Yeah, I couldn't resist, but I'll tell you why in a minute. So for my pre-meal test, before eating the biscuit and the roll. Now, we're not talking about big monster pieces of bread here. We're not talking about 5 or 6 pieces or 5 or 6 rolls like some people might eat, or like you eat pizza out and you have 6, 7 pieces.
Yeah.
We're talking about 1 small biscuit, 1 small roll, white bread, pure glucose, really, and it has its effect. So pre-meal 98. 1 hour afterwards, I got one of the highest scores I've ever had since I've been scoring.
It's big.
I think 2 bananas beat me by a few points. I think 2 bananas that I did years ago, it jumped up to 222. But a candy bar that I did at that same time, it only went into the 140s. So this 1 little scrawny biscuit, 1 little scrawny roll, white bread, jumped me and spiked me to 218, which is terrible. I knew there'd be a spike. I wasn't doubting that. I really didn't think it'd be this high.
Yeah.
So incredible. 2 hours after the meal, I was still way too high, 173. And as we mentioned, I couldn't resist kind of sneaking into the bathroom and testing myself. right before bed to see, am I down yet? And I was. Actually, I was down significantly. I was at 80. And I'm almost never at 80 during the day. I'm in the 90s, maybe in the 1-teens.
Yeah.
But my pancreas was working overtime. It was huffing and puffing. It's pumping its little guts out to try to get me down, and it succeeded. So way to go, pancreas. Sorry for giving you so much work to do and so much pressure. The biscuit and the roll, nobody has any business eating them. They're just terrible metabolically. You just don't want to do that. All right, let's go to the chaffles. The bread is not really a bread because it's made out of shredded cheese and a couple of eggs or one egg, depending on how big a recipe you make. And it's essentially a carnivore meal, except that we do throw in a little bit of almond flour, a little bit of soy flour, a little bit of heavy cream. So there's a little bit of other stuff in there, but not much. Go ahead. Tell us. Now, with the chaffles, it's technically not a pre-meal because we tested ourselves shortly after we got up in the morning.
Yeah.
And then we didn't test ourselves before the meal, which was several hours later. But anyway, go ahead, give us your pre-meal or / morning test, and then your 1 and 2 hour tests.
I don't know what happened, but this one.
Somebody was cheating, folks. Somebody was maybe eating or drinking something which she had no business eating or drinking, but we won't say what it is.
Yeah, don't say what it is.
We will not say what it is. I will hint that we had kind of a little birthday gathering of our family, and there were some things left over that we ought not to have touched, but somebody did touch.
My bad.
Okay. Go ahead now.
Okay, so my pre-meal on the chaffles was 1:15. And then after 1 hour, I was 1:05. And then after 2 hours, I was like 92.
Yeah. You headed straight south. From the minute you started eating, you went down, and then you went down some more. So, I mean, you can't complain too much about that. The chaffles agreed with you, and you did very well.
Right.
And the same with me. I started out pre-meal at 95, 1 hour, 101, which a 6-point rise is next to nothing. 2 hours, 105. It had kind of a drifting effect or a floating effect. Sometimes I think your pancreas says, well, there's nothing to worry about, and doesn't even try too hard because there's just so few carbs involved.
Okay.
And so you sometimes will float up a little bit more than you think you would, but still, peaking out at 105 after a couple of hours, not a bad deal at all.
Okay.
Finally, the keto buns. These are hamburger buns. We had a full bun, top and bottom, plus another half. And tell us what you got.
Wow. My pre-meal test was 101. In 1 hour time, I was 113. In 2 hours time, I was 104.
Yeah. So not terrible. Maybe a little bit more than you might have expected with the 113, but not bad. With me, it's a different story. I started out at 105. But 1 hour after eating, I was up to 149. 149.
That was a whopper.
It was a whopper. And it wasn't even the size of a Whopper bun, the Burger King.
Gosh.
There's one word for a 149 at 1 hour, and the word is unacceptable.
Yeah.
This was just plain unacceptable. Not going to do that again. Of course, you say, well, you could have just done the top and bottom and left off that third half, and I could have. Or my normal rule is you just use one bottom and you don't even do the top. That would have brought it down more. But still, this just gave me the creeps. I just didn't like being that high. And 2 hours after eating, I had hardly gone down at all. I was still at 146. So not too great at all. And I've been saying all along, you really can't trust keto breads unless you vet them and test them and find out whether they work for you. And probably you need to do it more than just one time. You need to do it several times. And you may need to try several brands, and you may find something that works for you, and you may not. This particular brand did not work for me. And it said plainly on the wrapper, keto buns or keto bread. Mm-hmm. So, and technically it should have had almost no carbs because it was almost all fiber. Mm. But my body doesn't go by technically. My body goes by what it goes by. Right. And Mike, the glucose meter said, Dennis, this doesn't work for you. Mm. Don't buy it again. Don't eat it again. Don't ever recommend it to anybody. So I won't. Mm. All right, so there you go. Regular bread, not a big surprise, except I was a little shocked by just how high it went. I hardly get over the 200s. I thought maybe I'd be more like you in the 140s, 150s, because we didn't eat a lot of it. But still, it was enough to get me over 200, and that's one place I don't like to be. That's the death zone for sure for a diabetic. And, there's one other thing I'll say before we wrap this up.
Okay.
You and I, we have different response. We've done enough tests that we respond differently.
Right.
I can usually keep up with you if I eat low carb and you eat low carb. Mm. There's very little difference, very little daylight between my tests and hers and my blood sugar and hers if we're both eating low carb.
Yeah.
But when we eat high carb foods, she handles them a whole lot better than I do.
Yep.
And that's the frustrating thing for those of us that have full-scale diabetes or you have diabetic tendencies. You may look at somebody else and they may do so much better than you on certain foods. But you can't just cry around and say, well, it's just not fair. Life's not fair. I want to be able to get the same scores as she or somebody else. You just deal with things as they are. For me, bread is out. Keto breads may or may not work. For her, she handles, in this case, almost everything. The normal bread did bring you over 140.
Yeah.
So that wasn't good. But otherwise, you did really well. So you're definitely ahead of me on your ability to process carbohydrates.
I don't know why I beat you all over the place several times like that.
But you love it, don't you?
I love it.
However, nobody got the score I did at bedtime after that biscuit and roll when I got an 80. So you see, I guess I won some little minor prize.
Yeah, you won that one, but I should have known. I should have been like, okay, what are you doing? Did you test again? No, yes, I would have test myself again. Mine should have come down a little more instead of getting stuck in 123.
Yep. All right, so Dennis and Benedicta are telling you, what are we telling them? We're telling them God bless you. And like this, give us a comment. That kind of helps YouTube to build up the video. And we hope you'll subscribe as well. God bless you. In addition to Beat Diabetes, Benedict and I do have another YouTube channel and another type of ministry. I'm referring to our Bible teaching channel, which goes by my name, Dennis Pollock. While you can only see Benedicta with me on Beat Diabetes occasionally, you can see us study the Bible together at our dining room table every Thursday. With all that we're doing, producing hundreds of videos and podcasts, sponsoring African missions, helping diabetics reverse their diabetes, giving food to African widows, and sponsoring free medical clinics in Nigeria and Kenya, we need your help. Please consider making regular contributions to Spirit of Grace Ministries.